So, what really happens when a shelter dog gets just one night away from all the noise and chaos? It seems like such a simple idea, right? But a recent study actually dug into the science behind these so called dog sleepovers. And honestly, the results are pretty incredible. Let's get into it. And to really get why this matters, you've got to understand the sheer scale of the problem. Every single year, right here in the US, over 4 million dogs end up in animal shelters. That's a huge number of animals living in what's basically a constant state of uncertainty and stress. Which brings us to the big question the researchers really wanted to answer. With so many dogs in this situation, could something as simple as a weekend sleepover in a quiet home have a real, actual, measurable impact? Or is it just a nice gesture that makes us humans feel better? Now, before we get to the experiment itself, we need to understand what exactly these dogs are getting a break from. I mean, shelters do absolutely heroic work, but the environment itself, well, that's the fundamental challenge. Just try to imagine it for a second. You're trying to sleep, but there's constant barking, phones are ringing, strangers are walking by, and there are all these new smells. For a dog whose senses are so heightened, it's just this massive sensory overload, making it almost impossible to truly relax. Okay, so this is where the science comes in. A team over at Arizona State University's Canine Science Collaboratory decided, you know what, let's move past the anecdotes and actually measure what one of these short-term foster stays, a sleepover, really does to a dog's stress. And this wasn't just some small one-off thing. No way. They did this across 5 different states, working with a bunch of different shelters. The whole point was to get solid data to see if this short escape is actually truly good for the dogs. So, what did they find? All right, let's get into the hard data and see how a quiet night on someone's couch actually translates into real biological changes for these animals.
So, how do you even measure stress in a dog? Well, the key is a hormone called cortisol. You can basically think of it as the body's own alarm system. When things get stressful, cortisol levels shoot up. So, by measuring it, scientists could get a really clear, objective picture of what these dogs were feeling.
And the results? They were crystal clear. The researchers got a baseline for a dog's cortisol in the shelter. But during the sleepover, those levels dropped a lot. It's literally the biological version of you or me leaving a super stressful job on a Friday afternoon. It's real, measurable relief. Now, this next part is huge because it tackles a really common worry. People thought, oh, if you give a dog a taste of a loving home and then bring them back, won't that make it even worse for them? But the data showed that's just not the case. Their stress levels simply went back to where they started, not higher. The break did absolutely no harm. One of the researchers, Lisa Gunter, put it in a way that just clicks. She said, trying to sleep in a shelter is like trying to sleep with noisy neighbors. That really captures it, right? It's not just about being stressed. It's about being completely and utterly exhausted. And you can see that exhaustion right here in the numbers. The research also looked at how much rest the dogs were getting. So a typical dog in a home gets about 14 hours of rest a day. In a shelter, that number plummets to under 11. That 3-hour sleep deficit, day in and day out, it really takes a toll. And get this, they even used activity trackers, kind of like a Fitbit for dogs. And they confirmed that during these sleepovers, the dogs got their longest stretches of deep, uninterrupted sleep. They weren't just less stressed, they were finally physically recovering. So yeah, the direct biological benefits for the dog are obvious. But the awesome part is, the good news doesn't stop there. This one simple act of a sleepover actually creates this whole cascade of other benefits for everyone involved. There are really 4 big ones. First, of course, the dog gets that vital break. But second, the shelter staff gets to see the dog's true personality. Is he good with cats? Does he know how to sit? That info is absolute gold for finding the perfect forever home. And finally, it's a great foster light trial run for people who are curious about volunteering, but maybe aren't ready for a long-term commitment. So when you pull all of this together, the cortisol data, the sleep trackers, all of it, a really powerful conclusion starts to take shape. The impact of just one night is simple, but it is so, so profound. This isn't just about feel-good stories anymore. The science confirms it. These short getaways give dogs genuine, measurable relief from stress and exhaustion.
It's a super low-cost, high-impact way to improve a dog's life while they're waiting for their family.
And that really leaves you with a powerful thought, doesn't it? We're always looking for these big, complicated solutions, but maybe, just maybe, one of the best medicines we have for a shelter dog is something most of us already have: a quiet couch.